quite an extensive answer to that. I mean, shedding a lot of light on the issues on the ground. That is Muthoni from Atlanta, Georgia. And now, maybe I'll put it to the panel. Do we need a sort of policy framework to streamline everything? Will that work? And exactly who should bring it forth? The government, or do we all come down at a round table and put in our suggestions and just get everything moving?
I think before I even speak about the policy, I really appreciate what Muthoni has said, because it's really well laid out, and obviously she knows what she's talking about. Mm-hmm. But speaking from experience, and I'm not a Kenyan from the diaspora, no. Mm-hmm. I have related with quite a number of them, so I understand their frustrations. Yeah. But just speaking on what Muthoni is talking about, yes, the government definitely needs to go and interact with the diaspora. Mm-hmm. What I have seen, unfortunately, is that there are so many small groups representing or saying that they do know what it is the diaspora needs. Yeah. Unfortunately, I don't know how far these initiatives have taken the diaspora, because then there's been a lot of issues again with fraud, a lot of issues again with those who say they represent the needs of the diaspora actually not doing what they purposed. And so what you find is the government will liaise with some of these people. At the same time, private sector will also liaise with them. And I think sometimes some of the interactions they have, they do go ahead and meet the diaspora, but don't quite understand what the needs of the diaspora are, how they are structured, how they live out there. So sometimes what you get is a situation where we're doing a diaspora expo. Oh yeah. Okay, so then you say, okay, how many of you want to meet the diaspora? Of course everybody wants to meet the diaspora, but because it's not organized, they don't appreciate the needs of the diaspora, it doesn't really take it very far. And then again, with the fact that some of these meetings have happened and they haven't really succeeded, you now have the issue of credibility. Oh, yeah. So can the diaspora really trust, you know, this group of people that come to meet them? So again, yeah, we may have policy, but I think there's still many other things that we're grappling with here. And maybe Robinson can reiterate, I don't know.
In fact, I was actually, is it okay if I ask Muthoni a question?
Oh, yes. Oh,
is that allowed?
Yeah.
Okay. Muthoni, in fact, you can shed some light on that issue of cooperation between the government and Kenyans abroad. There's supposed to be a meeting, I think in June, organized by the embassy. And then, you know, His Excellency, the ambassador based in Washington, D.C., Mr. Robinson Githai, cancelled that proposed meeting. You know, before I make my comments, could you tell us, you know, from what you've heard, why he cancelled that meeting or seminar or conference?
I was not aware of that meeting. I do apologize. I was not very conversant about that. But I will say this in answer to the points that were just raised regarding trying to get views from the diaspora. Just to put it in perspective for you, if we're looking at $8 billion in remittances, Kenyans in the diaspora are submitting 22% of the entire GDP. If I am giving you 22% of your household income, would it be too much to ask that you spend time in understanding what my needs are, number one? Number two, the Kenya government, by whatever institutions that it has around the world, which is basically embassies, consulates, and missions, has the ability to spend the time by in actually reaching out to the Kenyans who are living wherever they are, so that the conversation is not just 1 month we're going to show up and talk to you. The conversation needs to be continuous. I'll give you a very good example. Since I'm in the United States, when issues arise in the United States and we see them in the media, it is because the issue has come to a head. But before that has happened, there have been congressional hearings going on for years. For example, Apple Pay was just launched last year, November or October of last year. The congressional hearing that led to Apple Pay becoming institutionalized in the United States, that congressional hearing took place in 2011. And by the way, kudos to Kenya, because M-Pesa was discussed extensively and all the Americans are shaking their head trying to figure out if Africans can get this right, why are we not getting it right? But my point is this: the excuse that there's so many groups that exist in the diaspora that we don't know who is who is simply just that, an excuse. Because if you actually want to take me seriously because I'm giving you 22% of your needs in your household, then you will spend time talking to us about what is really going on.
All right, Muthoni. And maybe I'll put it to the whole panel. She raises a fairly good point, but I'll play the devil's advocate. If you don't have your house in order and we don't have our house in order, how are we supposed to meet each other halfway?
That's called chaos. And that's called chaos. And
Actually not. Actually not. That is the process of democracy. When you look at the processes of democratization around the world, whether it is a 200-year-old democracy or a 50-year-old democracy, that's the stuff democracy is made of. And it's not, it's because everybody needs to have a say, a place at the table. And then when everybody has said what they need to say, then we can come to a consensus on the most important issues, which is how we were doing the Diaspora review, policy review in 2012. That's what we did. We had teleconferences across the United States. We had folks, and these were 3-hour phone calls, talking about what we want to see, people submitting what their issues were. And then at the end of the day, what were our top 5 or top 6 issues? And by the way, 2 of them showed up in the policy that was actually submitted by the President of Kenya in at the beginning of this year.
Okay.
Absolutely, and she's right. I was just trying to be humorous.
All right.
Because at the end of the day, the chaos, breeds to everybody being heard, because somebody has to keep quiet at some point, and that's democracy. Oh, yeah. So the reason I had pointed out why, that meeting in Atlanta, which she did not know about, and the reason she did not know about it is because it was not well coordinated.
Is this the same meeting where we had the 2 rival Atlantic groups?
Right, right. There was rivalry that we didn't even know existed between those 2. So when the embassy is trying to organize a joint diaspora meeting, there's 2 or 3 groups fighting over leadership.
Okay.
So that brings in what everybody's saying, that there's got to be that recognition of who are the stakeholders are, and then a structured way to engage. But if groups, including the government here, because even the government here has its own issues.
Oh yeah, in-house.
In-house.
Oh yeah.
I mean, they were pouring water on each other the other day, right? So they have their own problems. So as they sort out that, they still have to get organized. And as the Kenyans abroad sort themselves out and get organized, then we sit down on a common table like everybody has said, and we chart our way forward. Because Africa has potential. You've heard the M-Pesa story. You've heard other stories. They're in shock about, these so-called stupid Africans, sometimes that's what they call us, can actually get their act together. The potential has always been there. Africa is the next frontier. If any institution, whether it be political, socio-economic, does not take advantage of these developments abroad, up to and including the ones in the Caribbean, where Lystra is from, they're the losers. So we hope that all players will take their work seriously.
All right. Njeri, what do you have to say?
Well, I must agree with Robinson. It's true. Yes, Muthoni raises a point that if we keep saying, we're not organized, it's really just an excuse. And but it's a fact. It's a fact that we have so many little factions saying we represent the diaspora. But this is why I think this whole idea of the Kenyan circle that is gaining momentum, and people in the States are feeling this is a good way for us to save some money and make some money along the way. That's why it's so exciting that if the circle can do it, come together, clearly come out with the needs of the diaspora, then there's going to be an opportunity for us to start taking their needs more seriously, because I think that's where the problem is. Lots of misunderstandings, not understanding quite how to treat this group called the diaspora.
And don't forget, this is also a circle in the United Kingdom.
Yeah, we're going to go into that.
Yeah, and the others, I think, that are starting up around the world.
And that being said, I wonder though, because if we're talking about having just a one group, then would it be fair to say that all the circles that we see in Kenya now should be consolidated into one? Because that sounds to me like that is the expectation. And I'm asking this from a very genuine perspective, because a lot of times the conversation regarding diaspora tends to be where there is this expectation that diaspora has to be one, when in reality, even on the ground in Kenya, we are not. We have multiple political parties. We had 54 political parties registered for the election of 2007. Or rather 2013, and then you had the coalitions that came forth from that. Yeah. So why is it that we are expected, we who are in the diaspora, who have views that are as divergent as Kenyans living in Kenya, are being expected to represent ourselves as one. And by the way, regarding the confederation that the gentleman mentioned, I'm very much aware of that. I know what's going on with that, and I understand it for what it is. Just to let you know, because I do study political science as well, when it comes to political parties, when a country is experimenting with democratization, it is not unusual, whether it is folks on the ground or folks in the diaspora, to have multiple political groups or social groups that show up. If you look at the history around the world in these processes, it is normal. For example, in Liberia at one point, just within Liberia, they had 200 political parties. So we are not an anomaly. We're going through a very normal process.
All right.
Can I answer that, Linda?
Okay.
Oh, yeah, just a comment on that.
Then we can have Lystra chime in on Muthoni's sentiments.
Yes. For the circles, from what I know, nobody's trying to push for one. In fact, one of our affiliates, our friends who was supposed to be here today, Ms. Joanne, Ms. Soy, mentioned that, Kenyans in that area, Minnesota and other states, are thinking about forming their own. Yeah. So up for financially, they're not saying one. Yeah. And so they can have as many as they want.
All right.
And even politically, nobody has ever said there should only be one. There should only be one, diaspora political organization or anything of that nature. But she's right. Hey, it's a free world out there. The more, the better. Of course, if they're organized, some type of for lack of a better word, political setup where they can speak at one voice when they need to, just like the UN, that would be great.
When they need to speak as one.
Yes, okay. But when it comes to their own individual sentiments about what Kenya should be like, they can do it safely.